The European Commission has unveiled new code of conduct to remove hate speech online on social media platforms in less than 24 hours. And this has been agreed on with Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Microsoft. And it's a pretty big deal. Basically, it's to remove hate speech. The reason they're doing this is because of hate speech against refugees, and also, according to themselves, also to fight against ISIS on social media, because ISIS does use social media to recruit fighters, recruit members for its terrorist organization, or I guess terrorist state at this point, you could argue. It does happen. So they're trying to fight that. On top of that, there's a lot of hate online against refugees because, well, people don't really like refugees. You know what? In the European Union, as someone who lives in Eastern Europe, in the European Union, there's plenty of hatred, as it were, between Western Europeans and Eastern Europeans, right? A lot of Western Europeans don't like Eastern Europeans coming to take their jobs. And this is legally, just so we're clear, this is legally. Member states, we do have the right to move to other countries and work in other countries. Just a point to make there, legally. When it comes to refugees, that's a whole different ballgame. People hate refugees with the terrorist attacks and with just the large mass of people coming in, and you know, some stories of crime. The whole thing on New Year's Eve in Cologne with hundreds of cases of sexual assault, women being raped, people being attacked, crime rising. Obviously, people are not taking that kindly. Now, this is, you know, my stance on refugees is a bit of a different one. I probably should make a dedicated video on that subject, but suffice to say, it is obviously a concern when it comes to it. So the government's trying to hide that because they do have a narrative. They do want to take the refugees in for various reasons, you know, cheap workforce, basically slave labor. It's like, oh, do you really think the governments of Europe, Germany, want these people to help these people? No, they don't give a fuck about these people. They just want them because they can get basically slave labor. And now they want to censor people who take issue with the fact that they're bringing so many people. Crime rates are rising. In Germany, actually, there's a problem with crime because of the Turkish immigrants that came in the country legally. Just for a record, legally, there's a problem with that. It's a much bigger problem what you have illegally. And then you have far-right governments rising in Europe. Just for a record, I am strongly against the far right. Like, when I look at Austria, what almost happened there, when I look at Marine Le Pen in France, I'm horrified as to what Europe is becoming. The far right is not the savior in Europe. Just to make that point, the far right is not the savior in Europe. In Europe. Because, yes, when it comes to American politics, it's a different ballgame. There are various things to talk about there. But in Europe, the far right is horrific. You know, Europe has gone to shit because of right-wing governments, or centrist right-wing. Centrist governments in theory, but right-wing economic policies. And then the solution people have is, let's go far right, and let's have xenophobic speech. And the response from the establishment, quote-unquote, is to censor people. And this is concerning. This is just another sign of how low Europe has fallen. Now, I know a lot of people, the majority of people watch my videos from the United States, understand that in Europe, free speech is not quite the same as it is in the US. You can't just say whatever fuck you want. In Germany, for instance, they have a law, you know, they had until recently, still have it, it's going to be repealed, but they had a law whereby you could be prosecuted for insulting a head of state. That recently happened with Erdogan, the head of state of Turkey. Now, German politicians say, "Oh, we didn't know about that because the only reason they found out about it is because Erdogan pursued charges against the person, against someone who slandered him in Germany." So, just a simple point to make on that particular subject, right there. So this is censorship online, social media, which is becoming more and more important in this day and age. Hell, presidential elections in some of the biggest countries in the world are, you know, influenced by social media. It's big. Revolutions, governments have fallen because people were able to use social media to organize. And governments want to control that one way or another. They don't want people to just say whatever the fuck they want. The fact, however, that they got Facebook, Google, right? Because YouTube is owned by Google. Microsoft and Twitter to all agree to this is pretty damn disconcerting, actually. It's not a good thing. It's not a good sign. One of the things that YouTube has stood for is apparently is free speech. They care about that, or they say they do. Apparently not enough, right? How is it that Europe has gotten to the point, that that it's censoring people, what people are saying? How is it? Remember Voltaire's famous line, "I don't agree with what you say, but I will defend to the death the right for you to say it." Whatever happened to that particular point in Europe? Well, apparently maintaining the establishment status quo. Now, here's the thing, though. Here's the idiotic portion of it. Do you know when this is happening? What month is this? What year is this? What vote is it? Just a couple of days ago, days away from this point. Right, the one referendum in the UK that might decide the whole fate of the European Union, where the UK might leave the European Union, and they do this a few days before that referendum. These people are imbeciles, like literal imbeciles. There's no way of putting it. How stupid can you be to do something like this, knowing that it's going to cause a huge ruckus online, offline, among the population? How can you do this? Basically engage in censorship before one of the most important referendums in the European Union's history that might decide the course of history, in a sense, for the European Union and the fate of the European Union. If the UK leaves the European Union, we're kind of fucked, as it were. And not that we're in a good state, and I would honestly argue to a point here that there are very good arguments for why the United Kingdom should leave the European Union. But they do this just a couple of days, and the people doing this, they're not trying to sabotage that. They want the UK to stay in the European Union, but they do this like blind fucking idiots that they are, not knowing that it will harm their European project. Europe's gone to shit. The people leading it are complete idiots, and now we're paying the price for it. Censorship and potentially affecting the British exit referendum in a negative way. Negative in a sense if you believe the UK should stay in the European Union. Ideally, it should. Ideally, we'd have a good European state. Ideally. Idealism is not what rules the world. Ideally. Realistically, Europe's gone to fucking hell and back. And it's going deeper and deeper and deeper into hell. And this is just another sign of that. It's another symptom of the problems we're dealing with. That's all I had to say on this subject. Bloody idiots. I mean, God. There's not much more to say. It's like, I guess we'll decide we'll wait to see what the British people decide, what they think is best for the future of their country.